Day 5 arrived with a problem. The 4 humans stood at the edge of their camp and looked at what used to be the river. The water was gone. The riverbed was dry mud and scattered rocks. The simulation is changing, Minji said, making things harder. Hyun knelt and touched the mud. This happened within the last few hours. The water did not dry up naturally. The simulation drained it. They had been collecting water from this river. Now they needed a new source, and they were not the only ones. All around their zone, other candidates were dealing with the same problem. The sounds of frustrated roars and angry calls echoed through the jungle. There, J1 pointed to a rocky hill in the distance. Higher elevation usually means springs or underground water. We should check there. They gathered their weapons and supplies. Several other candidates saw them leaving and followed at a distance. The humans had proven trustworthy over the past 2 days. If they were going somewhere, it was probably for a good reason. The journey took 2 hours. The jungle terrain was rough and they had to move carefully. Twice they spotted simulation predators and had to hide. The creatures were getting more aggressive as resources became scarce. When they reached the hills, they found what they were looking for. A small spring bubbled out from between rocks. But they were not alone. A group of Crethans had already claimed the area. There were 6 of them, all large and armored. The leader stepped forward. Water is ours. Find another source. Jawan raised his hands peacefully. There might not be another source. The simulation is limiting resources. We should share. Why would we share with soft skins who have no natural defenses? The Crethan laughed. You humans are weak. Minji stepped forward, her spear ready. Test that theory if you want. The Crethan looked at the weapons the humans carried. They were not just simple sharpened trays anymore. Over 5 days, the humans had refined their tools into professional-grade equipment. Jaewon's spear had a balanced weight and a razor-sharp point. Nari carried a blade that could cut and stab with equal efficiency. Hyun had multiple weapons strapped to his body. Minji's spear was longer than the others, designed for reach. More importantly, other candidates had followed the humans. They emerged from the trees. A dozen species all watching the confrontation. The Crethan leader suddenly realized he was not facing 4 weak humans. He was facing a potential coalition. We will share, the Crethan said finally. But humans take last turn. After all others. It was an insult, but Hyun simply nodded. Acceptable. Thank you for your generosity. The Crethan looked confused by the polite response. It clearly expected anger or challenge. Instead, the humans simply waited patiently while other candidates drank from the spring. While they waited, Jaewon observed the area carefully. He noticed something interesting. The water from the spring flowed down into a small pool, then disappeared into a crack in the rocks. He followed the crack with his eyes and saw it led into a dark opening. A cave! Look there, he whispered to the others. Nari saw it too. We should explore after we get water. When it was finally their turn to drink, the humans filled their containers quickly. The Crethans watched them closely, probably expecting them to try something. Instead, the humans thanked them again and moved toward the cave entrance. Where are you going? One of the Crethans demanded. Exploring, Jaewon said. The simulation wants us to find things. So we look. Inside the cave, they found something unexpected. Ancient markings covered the walls. Not real ancient, of course. This was a simulation. But the markings formed a map. It showed the layout of the entire exam zone with different areas marked by symbols. This is a test within a test, Nari said, studying the markings. The Academy wants to see who is smart enough to find this information. Minji traced the map with her finger. Look, this symbol appears 3 times. Here, here, and here. They might be supply caches or safe zones. Or they might be trap zones, Hyun cautioned. We should check one carefully before assuming anything. They copied the map onto a piece of bark using charcoal from their fire. Then they left the cave and started back toward their camp. Behind them, they heard the Crethans discovering the cave. There were sounds of confusion and argument. The Crethans could not read the map as easily as the humans had. On the way back, they stopped at the first marked location. It was a clearing with a single strange tree in the center. The tree had silver bark and purple leaves. Definitely not natural. Jaewon approached carefully. At the base of the tree was a small container. Inside were medical supplies, food rations, and something else. A toolkit with actual metal tools, real knives, rope, and even a small fire starter. The simulation is rewarding problem-solving, Nari breathed. The candidates who find these hidden caches get better equipment. Should we take it all? Minji asked. Jaewon thought for a moment. Take what we need. Leave the rest. Other candidates might need it too. They took the medical supplies, some rope, and one metal knife. They left the food and other tools. It felt strange to leave valuable supplies behind, but Jaewon had a feeling it was the right choice. When they returned to camp, they found it had changed. More candidates had moved closer. The area around the human camp had become a small community. Different species were sharing space, not attacking each other. All because the humans had shown it was possible. That evening, something new happened. The simulation sent a message. All candidates heard it at the same time, broadcast directly into their minds. Attention, candidates. A new challenge begins at dawn. The apex predator will be released. It is designed to hunt the strongest candidates. Survive for 24 hours and you pass this trial. Fail and you will be removed from the exam. The camp erupted into worried chatter. An apex predator specifically designed to hunt the strongest candidates. That changed everything. It will come for those of us who are doing well, Hyun said grimly. The humans have been too successful. We are targets now. Jaewon looked at their weapons. The sharpened meal trays had served them well, but against a predator designed by the Academy? They needed to be smarter. We need a plan, he said. Not just to survive, but to turn this challenge into an advantage. They spent the night preparing. Jaewon used his engineering knowledge to design traps. Hyun contributed his survival expertise about predator behavior. Nari thought about weak points that every biological creature had. Minji considered terrain advantages from her exploration data. By dawn, they had a strategy. It was risky. It required perfect timing. But if it worked, they would not just survive the apex predator, they would defeat it. As the sun rose on day 6, they heard it. A roar that shook the jungle. Birds flew from the trees in panic. Small animals scattered. The apex predator had been released. Through the trees, they caught their first glimpse of it. It was massive, at least 4 meters tall. Its body was covered in armored scales. It had 6 legs for stability, a long tail with spikes and a head full of teeth. Its eyes glowed red as it scanned the jungle. The creature's head turned toward their camp. It had detected them. The strongest candidates, the ones who had been thriving. The perfect targets, it's coming, Minji said quietly. Good, Jaewon replied, gripping his spear. Let it come. We are ready. The other candidates near their camp began to scatter, running in panic. But the 4 humans did not run. They moved to their prepared positions. They had spent all night setting this up. Now it was time to see if human ingenuity could defeat evolution's perfect predator. The creature charged into the clearing where their camp stood. Its massive feet crushed plants and broke branches. It roared again, a sound of pure aggression. It was designed to be unstoppable. But the humans had learned something important over the past 6 days. Nothing was truly unstoppable. Everything had weaknesses. You just had to find them. Jaewon raised his hand and signaled. Phase 1 of the plan began. In the monitoring station, every proctor was watching. Velkris leaned forward in his seat. Torvus had called in additional observers. What happened in the next few minutes would determine whether the humans' success was luck or something more. The apex predator was the simulation's final answer to the human problem. It was designed to counter tool use with raw power. It was supposed to prove that natural evolution beat adaptation. But as Velkris watched the humans spring their trap, he began to realize something. The Academy had made a mistake. They had given the humans 6 days to prepare. 6 days to think, plan, and create. That might have been 5 days too many. The predator stepped onto the first trap and everything changed. The first day in the jungle was harder than Jaewon expected. The heat made his clothes stick to his skin. Insects buzzed around his head constantly. Strange animal calls echoed through the trees, some close and some far away, but he kept working on the tray. He sat on a fallen log and dragged the edge of the tray across the rough stone again and again. The motion was simple but took focus. Drag, check the edge, drag again. The polymer material was tough, but slowly it began to change shape. After 2 hours, he could see a difference. The rounded edge was starting to become thinner. Nari had found a spot nearby and was doing the same thing. Neither of them talked much. They saved their energy for the work. Water break, Nari said after a while. Jaewon stopped and stretched his arms. His shoulders hurt from the repetitive motion. He took a small sip from his water bottle. They had to make it last. A rustling sound came from the bushes to their left. Both humans froze. Something was moving through the undergrowth. Something big, a creature, emerged into the small clearing. It looked like a cross between a bear and a lizard with thick scales and powerful legs, its eyes fixed on them. Yellow eyes with vertical pupils. Jaewon's hand tightened on his half-finished tray blade. It was not sharp enough yet. Not even close. The creature took a step forward and opened its mouth, showing rows of teeth. Then a rock flew through the air and hit the creature on its snout. It yelped and turned. Another human stood at the edge of the clearing. He was older, maybe in his 40s, with gray in his hair. Move. Now, the man said calmly. Jaewon and Nari did not need to be told twice. They grabbed their things and ran. The older man threw another rock, then followed them. The creature roared but did not chase them. Maybe it decided they were too much trouble. They ran for 5 minutes before stopping in a dense thicket of bamboo-like plants. Thanks, Jaewon said, breathing hard. Hyun Park, the man said. You must be the other humans. Saw you two earlier. Nari Choi, this is Jaewon Kim. Hyun looked at the trays they were carrying. His own tray was already noticeably different. One edge had been sharpened to a rough point. Good thinking, he said. Most species here don't understand tools. They think evolution gave them everything they need. How long have you been working on yours? Nari asked. Since I arrived. About 4 hours now. He held it up. The edge was not perfect, but it was definitely sharp enough to cut. I trained in wilderness survival for 15 years. First rule, always have a knife. If you don't have one, make one. Jaewon felt a spark of hope. Maybe humans could do this after all. They decided to work together. Hyun found a good spot to make camp. A small cave formed by fallen trees and overgrown roots. It would protect them from rain and hide them from larger predators. While Nari and Jaewon continued sharpening their trays, Hyun gathered materials. By late afternoon, Jaewon's tray edge was finally sharp. He tested it carefully on a thin branch. The blade cut through the wood. It was not as good as a steel knife, but it worked. He felt a surge of satisfaction. Now what? Nari asked. Her blade was almost finished too. Now we make it better, Hyun said. He showed them how to use vine fiber to wrap around one end of the tray, creating a handle. The grip made the blade much easier to use. Then he demonstrated how to lash the blade to a longer stick using more vine. Spear, Hyun said simply, keeps danger at a distance. As the sun began to set, the three humans had transformed their meal trays. Jaewon had a knife and a spear. Nari had a knife and was working on a second tool. Hyun had made 2 spears and kept his original knife blade as backup. They ate their protein bars slowly, making them last. The simulation would provide more food tomorrow morning, but they did not know how much. Did you see the other human? Minji, Jaewon asked. Hyun shook his head. No sign of her. Might be on the other side of this jungle zone. Night fell quickly in the jungle. The darkness was almost complete. Strange sounds grew louder. Screams, roars, and sounds like breaking trees came from all directions. Somewhere not too far away, a loud boom echoed through the forest. Candidates fighting, Hyun said quietly, or getting eliminated. They took turns keeping watch. Jaewon took the first shift. He sat at the entrance to their small shelter, holding his spear, and watched the darkness. His eyes slowly adjusted. Shapes moved in the shadows between trees. Some were small, probably harmless. Others were larger. At one point, he saw lights in the distance, energy weapons firing. Some species had natural abilities that worked like technology. The humans did not have that advantage either. During Nari's watch shift, something big came close to their camp. She woke the others with a gentle touch. All 3 of them stayed perfectly still as something massive walked past their hiding spot. Through the gaps in the roots, they saw a creature as tall as a house. Its footsteps shook the ground. It was hunting, but it did not notice them. When it was finally gone, Nari let out a slow breath. This simulation is not playing around. No, Hyun agreed. It's designed to push candidates to their limits. Most species will rely on their natural advantages, but those advantages come with weaknesses too. That armored alien from this morning, its shell is strong, but it makes them slow. The flying ones? They can't navigate through dense forest. Everything has a trade-off. Except humans, Jaewon said. We don't have natural weapons, so we have no natural weaknesses either. We adapt. Exactly, Hyun said. And right now we're adapting faster than anyone expected. Morning came with new food packets appearing near their shelter. Some kind of automated delivery system, probably. The packets contained more protein bars and water. But they also came with new meal trays. Jaewon looked at the fresh tray and smiled. More materials. We should make extras, Nari suggested. Backup blades. Maybe try different designs. They spent the morning improving their weapons. Jaewon tried making a smaller blade that could be hidden. Hyun worked on creating serrated edges on one of his spears. Nari, with her medical training, shaped a blade that could work for both defense and precise cutting. By midday, they heard voices. Not human voices. A group of Cretan candidates, the armored aliens, were moving through the jungle nearby. There were 5 of them, and they were arguing loudly. Useless. One of them roared. These trees are too thick. We cannot move properly. The simulation is designed to disadvantage our species, another complained. The humans stayed hidden and quiet. The Crethans passed by without seeing them. After they were gone, Hyun spoke quietly. They're learning the first lesson. Natural advantages only work in the right environment. Change the environment and suddenly you're at a disadvantage. But tools work anywhere, Jaewon added. A knife is useful in jungle, desert, mountains, anywhere. Over the next hours, they explored their area carefully. Hyun taught them how to spot edible plants and find water sources. Jaewon used his engineering knowledge to create a simple water filter from sand, charcoal, and fabric. Nari set up a small medical station with supplies she found in the jungle. By the end of the second day, their camp was more than just a hiding spot. It was a base of operations. They had tools, weapons, shelter, water, and a plan. High above, in the monitoring station, more proctors had gathered around Velcris's station. They watched the human candidates with growing interest. They are not just surviving, one proctor observed. They are thriving, Velcris nodded slowly. Yes, and they are doing it with nothing but creativity and persistence. No other species has thought to weaponize the meal trays. The humans saw resources where others saw trash. Should we stop them? Another proctor asked. Change the rules? No, Velcris said firmly. They are not breaking any rules. They brought no weapons into the exam. They created these tools from provided materials. It is legal if unexpected. He continued watching the screens. The 3 humans were now teaching each other skills, combining their knowledge. An engineer, a medic, and a survival expert. Together, they were more than the sum of their parts. Keep monitoring them closely, Velcris ordered. I want to see what else they can do. Jaewon Kim stood in the massive waiting hall and looked up at the ceiling that seemed to stretch forever. He had never seen anything like this place before. The Proving Ground space station was bigger than any city on Earth. Thousands of aliens filled the hall around him. Some had scales, some had fur, and some looked like they were made of rocks or crystals. He was one of the few humans here. A tall being made of purple crystal walked to the front of the hall. Its body sparkled under the bright lights. When it spoke, its voice came from everywhere at once. I am Velcris, the administrator of this facility. You are here because you want to join the Interstellar Defense Academy. Only the best will pass this test, Jaewon listened carefully. He had trained for 3 years to get this chance. Back on Earth, everyone said he was crazy to apply. The Defense Academy had only accepted 12 humans in its entire history. Most species had natural advantages that humans simply did not have. The rules are simple, Velcris continued. You will spend 7 days in a simulation environment. It will be dangerous. Some of you will fail. Some of you might get hurt. You cannot bring any weapons, tools, or technology with you. You will receive basic clothes and food only. A large alien next to Jaewon laughed. It had thick armor plating covering its entire body and claws as long as kitchen knives. No weapons needed, it rumbled in a deep voice. I have everything I need. Jaewon looked down at his own hands. They were soft and pink. No claws, no armor, no poison sacs or razor-sharp teeth. Humans were not built for combat like these other species. But Jaewon smiled slightly. His instructors back on Earth had taught him something important. Humans might not have natural weapons, but they had something better. You will each receive an identification band, Velcris said. If you are in serious danger, press the red button. We will remove you from the simulation. But if you press it, you fail the exam. The test begins tomorrow at dawn. Rest well tonight. The crowd began to move toward the sleeping quarters. Jaewon walked slowly, watching the other candidates. He saw beings that could fly, others that looked like they could tear through steel with their bare hands. A creature made of what looked like living fire floated past him. Quite a competition, isn't it? Jaewon turned and saw a young woman with short black hair. She wore the same plain gray uniform he did. Another human. I'm Nari Choi, she said. Combat medic from the Seoul Defense Force. Jaewon Kim, engineer. Used to work on the Mars colonies. They shook hands. It felt strange to do something so normal in this alien place. Saw 2 other humans earlier, Nari said quietly. Guy named Hyun Park, military survival trainer, and someone named Minji Lee, deep space explorer. 4 humans out of 5,000 candidates, Jaewon said. Not great odds. No, Nari agreed. But humans have surprised people before. That night, Jaewon could not sleep. He lay on the hard bed in his small room and thought about the test ahead. 7 days in a hostile environment with no tools. Most species would rely on their biology. Their evolution had given them weapons. But human evolution had gone a different path. He thought about his grandfather, who had been a craftsman back in Busan. The old man could make anything with his hands. He once told Jaewon that humans survived because they could adapt. We are not the strongest, his grandfather had said. We are not the fastest. But we can learn. We can change. We can make tools. Jaewon finally fell asleep thinking about tools. The next morning came too quickly. Guards led the candidates to a huge chamber with a glowing portal in the center. One by one, species were called forward and sent through. When Jaewon's name was called, he walked to the portal. His heart beat fast in his chest. The world spun. Colors flashed. Then suddenly he was standing in a jungle. The air was hot and wet. Huge trees rose all around him, their leaves blocking out most of the sunlight. Strange sounds echoed through the forest. Roars, screams, and sounds he could not identify. In his hand was a small packet. He opened it and found a protein bar and a bottle of water. Next to his feet was a flat tray made of some kind of hard plastic or polymer. Other candidates appeared around him in flashes of light. The large armored alien from yesterday materialized nearby. It looked around, snorted, and walked into the jungle without even picking up its tray. A flying creature grabbed its protein bar and took off into the sky, also leaving the tray behind. Jaewon picked up his tray and examined it carefully. It was about 30 centimeters long and 20 wide. The material was stiff but had some flex to it. The edges were rounded and smooth. He pressed his thumbnail against it. The material was hard but not impossible to work with. Interesting choice. He looked up and saw Nari standing nearby. She held her tray and was looking at it the same way he was. Most people are just leaving these, she said. Most people have claws and armor, Jaewon replied. We don't. A scream came from somewhere in the jungle. It was cut off suddenly. Both humans looked in that direction, then back at each other. We should find shelter before dark, Nari said. Agreed. But first I need to find some rocks. Rocks? Jaewon held up the tray. This is pressed polymer composite, similar to what we used for tool handles on Mars. With enough patience and the right technique, I can shape it. Nari's eyes widened with understanding. You're going to make a weapon. A tool, Jaewon corrected. Tools can be many things. They moved deeper into the jungle together. Jaewon kept his eyes on the ground, looking for the right kind of stone. He needed something hard, maybe volcanic rock or dense granite. The jungle was full of dangers, but his mind was focused on the problem at hand. After 20 minutes, he found what he needed. A large stone with a rough surface, perfect for grinding. He sat down and began to work. Nari watched for a moment, then found her own rock and started working on her tray too. Above them, hidden cameras recorded everything. In the monitoring station, Velkris watched the screens with interest. In 73 years of running this exam, he had never seen anyone try to weaponize a meal tray. He leaned forward to watch more closely. These humans were doing something unexpected, something that might change everything. The apex predator's massive foot came down on the covered pit. The branches and leaves they had carefully arranged broke instantly under its weight. The creature roared in surprise as it fell, but it was too large to fall completely. Its front legs crashed into the pit while its rear legs stayed on solid ground. But that was exactly what Jaewon had planned. Now, he shouted. Hyun pulled a vine rope. The rope was connected to a bent tree they had prepared during the night. The tree snapped upward with tremendous force. Tied to its branches were dozens of sharpened stakes, all made from meal trays. The stakes flew toward the predator's exposed underbelly. Several stakes hit their target. The predator's armor was thick on its back and sides, but its belly was softer. Black blood began to drip from the wounds. The creature screamed in pain and rage. It pulled itself out of the pit with frightening speed, its red eyes fixed on Jaewon. It charged at him with murder in its gaze. Jaewon ran. He was not trying to escape. He was leading it exactly where he wanted. Behind him, the predator crashed through the jungle, destroying everything in its path. Its massive body knocked down trees as if they were grass. Jaywin reached the second prepared location. He dove and rolled to the side. The predator, moving too fast to stop, ran straight into a wall of vines stretched between trees. But these vines were special. The humans had woven the sharpened edges of meal trays into them, creating a net of blades. The creature hit the net and sliced itself in multiple places. More blood flowed. It roared again, but this time there was something else in the sound. Confusion. This was not how prey was supposed to behave. Minji appeared from behind a tree. She threw her spear with perfect accuracy. The spear was not meant to kill. It was a distraction. It hit the predator's armored head and bounced off, but it made the creature turn toward her, which meant its back was to Nari. Nari ran forward with her blade. She had been watching the creature carefully, using her medical knowledge to identify weak points. Between the armored scales were tiny gaps where the plates connected. She drove her blade into one of these gaps right behind the creature's front leg. The blade went deep into muscle and tendon. The predator's left front leg gave out. It stumbled and crashed onto its side. The impact shook the ground, but it was not done. Even wounded, even bleeding, it was still deadly. Its tail whipped around, trying to hit Nari. She barely jumped back in time. The spiked tail smashed into a tree, splitting the trunk in half. Hyun appeared on the predator's blind side. He had made a special weapon just for this moment. It was a spear with a blade designed to cut sideways, not just stab. He slashed at the predator's rear leg, cutting through the weak points in its armor. Now 2 of its 6 legs were damaged. The creature could still move, but it was slower. Much slower. Phase 2, Jaewon called out. They had known they could not kill this creature with simple weapons. It was too strong, too well armored. But they did not need to kill it. They just needed to control it. All 4 humans fell back to the third prepared position. This one had taken the most work. They had found a narrow canyon between 2 rocky hills. The entrance was barely wide enough for the predator to fit through. And inside the canyon, they had set up their final trap. The predator, angry and wounded, followed them. It wanted revenge for the pain they had caused. It dragged its damaged legs but kept coming. Nothing would stop it from crushing these tiny creatures. It entered the canyon. The walls pressed close on either side. Perfect, Jaewon signaled again. Nari and Minji, positioned on top of the canyon walls, cut ropes. Massive rocks, carefully balanced at the top of the cliff, came tumbling down. The humans had spent hours positioning these boulders. Now gravity did the work for them. The rocks crashed into the canyon, hitting the predator from both sides. The creature tried to back out, but more rocks fell behind it, blocking its escape. It was trapped. The predator roared and thrashed, but the walls were solid rock. It could not break through. Every movement caused its wounds to bleed more. It was powerful, but it was also bleeding out slowly. The humans did not approach. They stayed at a safe distance and watched, waiting. After 10 minutes, the predator's movements became weaker. After 20 minutes, it collapsed. After 30 minutes, it stopped moving entirely. The simulation's apex predator had been defeated, but the humans had done something no one expected. They had not killed it quickly. They had controlled the battlefield, controlled the fight, and made the predator defeat itself through exhaustion and blood loss. In the monitoring station, complete silence filled the room. Every proctor stared at the screens in disbelief. They did not fight it, one proctor whispered. They engineered its defeat. Torvus stood slowly. His ancient eyes were wide. In 10,000 years of this exam, I have never seen anything like this. The humans did not rely on strength or speed or natural weapons. They used terrain, timing, and tactics. They turned the environment itself into a weapon. Velcris pulled up data frantically. The apex predator was designed to be unbeatable with standard approaches. It was supposed to force candidates to run and hide, but the humans did not run. They hunted it. No, Torvus corrected. They were smarter than that. They made it hunt them and led it into a carefully constructed trap. Every step of that fight was planned. The pit to wound it, the blade net to slow it, the targeted strikes at weak points, the canyon trap to finish it. That was not desperation. That was military strategy. Should we send a second apex predator? A proctor asked nervously. Absolutely not, Torvus said firmly. They have passed this trial completely. Sending another would be punishment for success. Back in the jungle, the 4 humans sat and caught their breath. They were exhausted, covered in sweat and dirt, but they were alive. More than that, they had won. Other candidates began to appear. They had watched the fight from safe distances. A Crethan approached slowly, its armored body making heavy sounds on the ground. "You defeated the apex predator," it said. There was awe in its voice. "How?" "We worked together," J1 said simply. "We used our tools. And we made a plan. But you have no natural weapons. No armor, no power. We don't need them," Nari said. "We have something better. We have the ability to adapt." More candidates gathered around. They looked at the human weapons with new understanding. These were not just sharpened meal trays anymore. They were symbols of something greater. They represented the human approach to problems. If something does not exist, build it. If something is too strong, outsmart it. If something seems impossible, find a new way. The rest of day 6 passed quietly. The simulation seemed to be processing what had happened. The apex predator had been its final challenge, and the humans had defeated it. That night, the 4 humans sat around their fire and talked about what would come next. "One more day," Minji said. "Then the exam ends. Do you think we passed?" Nari asked. Hyun laughed. "If defeating an apex predator is not enough to pass, I don't know what is." Jaewon looked at his original weapon, the first blade he had made from the breakfast tray on day 1. It was chipped and worn now, scarred from days of use, but it had served its purpose. This simple piece of shaped polymer had proven something important. "My grandfather once told me that humans survived because we could adapt," Jaewon said. "But I think it is more than that. We don't just adapt to survive. We adapt to excel. We take challenges and turn them into opportunities. Like turning a breakfast tray into a blade," Nari said. "Exactly. Other species saw trash. We saw potential." Day 7 arrived with a strange calm. The simulation seemed almost peaceful. No predators attacked. No environmental hazards appeared. It was as if the exam had accepted that the humans had already proven everything they needed to prove. Other candidates sought out the humans throughout the day. They asked questions about tool-making, strategy, teamwork. The humans shared their knowledge freely. By the end of the day, dozens of candidates had improved their chances of passing, all because the humans had taught them new ways of thinking. When the sun began to set on the 7th day, a voice echoed through the jungle. It was Velkris. "The examination period has concluded. All remaining candidates will now be returned to the station. Your performance is being evaluated. Results will be announced shortly." The world flashed white. Jaewon found himself standing back in the massive waiting hall. He still wore the same dirty, torn clothes from the simulation. He still held his scarred and chipped blade. Around him, hundreds of other candidates appeared. Out of 5,000 who started, only about 1,000 remained. Many had pressed their emergency buttons. Others had simply failed to survive. Jaewon saw Nari, Hyun, and Minji nearby. All 4 humans had made it. They smiled at each other tiredly. Velkris appeared at the front of the hall. The crystalline being seemed different somehow. More thoughtful. "Candidates," he began. "You have completed the most difficult entrance exam in the galaxy. Out of nearly 5,000 participants, 847 have passed." Numbers appeared in the air, showing pass rates by species. The humans stared at the data in shock. Out of 4 human candidates, all 4 had passed. A 100% success rate, the highest of any species. And more than that, human candidates had the highest individual scores in survival, adaptability, leadership, and strategic thinking. Day 3 began with an unexpected discovery. Jaewon woke early and found someone sitting outside their shelter. A young woman with long hair tied back in a practical braid. She held a crude spear and looked exhausted. "Minji Lee," she said when she saw him. "I've been looking for other humans for 2 days." They welcomed her into the camp. Minji was a deep space explorer who had spent years on solo missions. She knew how to survive alone, but she was smart enough to know that groups had better chances. "I saw what you did with the trays," she said, looking at their weapons. "Brilliant. I made one too, but mine broke yesterday fighting off a pack of those lizard bear things." Hyun gave her one of his spare blades. "We're making more today. The simulation drops new trays with breakfast. We've been stockpiling them." Now there were 4 humans. They spent the morning upgrading their camp and weapons. Minji shared information about the terrain she had covered. There was a river about 2 kilometers east, and she had seen caves in the rocky hills to the north. Caves would be more defensible, Hyun said thoughtfully. but harder to escape from if we get trapped, Nari countered. They decided to stay at their current location but scout the other areas. Knowledge was power. Around noon, they heard sounds of combat nearby. Jaewon climbed a tree to get a better view. Through the leaves, he could see a clearing where several candidates were fighting. A Vilnari, one of the species with poisonous spines, was facing off against what looked like a mechanical creature. The simulation's predator. The Vilnari fired its spines at the machine, but they bounced off its metal hide. The creature did not have organic parts that could be poisoned. Within minutes, the Vilnari was forced to press its emergency button and vanish in a flash of light. Failed. Jaewon climbed down and reported what he saw. The simulation is smart. It adapts to counter natural advantages. That Vilnari's poison was useless against a non-organic target, which means our tools are actually better, Minji said. A sharp blade works on organic or mechanical targets. It's universal. That afternoon, they had another visitor. A Crethan, one of the armored aliens, stumbled into their camp. It was injured. Deep cuts in its armor leaked blue blood. It collapsed near their shelter. The four humans looked at each other. This was a competitor. But Nari's medical training kicked in immediately. We can't just let it die. She moved forward carefully. The Crethan's eyes were unfocused, but it saw her approach. Human, it growled weakly. You help? Stay still, Nari said. She examined the wounds. Jaewon, I need clean water. Hyun, tear some fabric into strips. Minji, help me turn it over. They worked together to treat the Crethan's injuries. Nari used her shaped blade as a surgical tool, cleaning the wounds with precision. The Crethan groaned but did not resist. Maybe it was too weak. Maybe it understood they were trying to help. After an hour, the wounds were cleaned and bandaged. The Crethan would survive. Why? It asked, looking at Nari. I am your competition. You needed help, Nari said simply. That's enough reason. The Crethan stared at her for a long moment. Then it reached up and pressed its emergency button. The red light flashed and the Crethan vanished. It chose to quit rather than owe us, Hyun observed. Or it realized something, Jaewon said. It saw humans with advanced tools working together and showing mercy. Maybe that scared it more than the simulation. As the sun began to set on day 3, they noticed something strange. More candidates were appearing near their camp. Not entering, just watching. A flying creature perched in a tree. 2 Vilnari stood at the edge of the clearing. Even a Crethan observed from a distance. What do they want? Minji whispered. Hyun smiled slightly. They want to learn. They've seen what we can do with the meal trays. Now they want to try. Sure enough, several aliens were holding their meal trays and attempting to sharpen them, but they struggled. The flying creatures lacked the hand strength to grind the polymer. The Crethans pressed too hard and cracked their trays. The Vilnari's spines got in the way of their finger movements. They can't do it, Nari said, watching. They don't have the right combination of hand structure and patience. Human hands evolved for tool use, Jaewon explained quietly. We have opposable thumbs, fine motor control, and the shoulder rotation to apply steady pressure at the right angle. Plus, we have the patience to do repetitive tasks for hours. It's not just intelligence. It's physical adaptation combined with mental discipline. A young Vilnari approached their camp cautiously. It held its meal tray and made a questioning gesture. Do we teach them? Minji asked. Jaewon thought about it. This is a competition. But it's also a test of character. The Academy wants to see how we handle challenges. He stood and walked toward the Vilnari. I'll show you, he said. But you have to practice. It takes time. He spent an hour teaching the Vilnari the basics of blade making. The alien struggled with the technique, but eventually managed to create a rough edge. It made a grateful clicking sound and left to practice more. Word spread quickly. Over the next few hours, several more candidates approached the human camp seeking advice. Some were hostile and left when they got no immediate answers. But others were willing to learn, and the humans helped them. By nightfall, something remarkable had happened. The human camp had become an unexpected meeting point. Not an alliance exactly, but a place where candidates from different species could rest without fighting. The humans, lacking natural weapons, had become the neutral party. This is not what I expected, Minji admitted as they ate their evening meal. Neither did anyone else, Hyun said, but we're adapting to the situation. That's what humans do best. That night, Jaewon took first watch again. He sat with his spear across his lap and watched the jungle. Several candidates had made small camps nearby, close enough to the humans to feel safer, but far enough to maintain independence. One of the proctor's cameras, hidden in the trees, captured everything. In the monitoring station, Velkris was having an intense discussion with the head examiner, Torvis. The ancient being had taken personal interest in the human candidates. They are changing the entire dynamic of the exam, Torvis observed. Other species are adapting their behavior because of human influence. Should we intervene? Velkris asked. No, this is fascinating. The humans are demonstrating leadership, teaching ability, and strategic thinking. These are exactly the qualities we look for in academy candidates. But they're helping their competition, another proctor pointed out. Are they? Torvis replied. Or are they building a network? Look at the data. Candidates who have interacted with the humans are now less likely to attack each other. The humans have reduced overall violence in their zone by 37%. They have created a micro-society in just 3 days. Velkris pulled up more data. Human candidates now have a 78% projected pass rate. That's higher than any other species in this exam. And they started with the lowest natural advantages, Torvis said. No weapons, no armor, average physical abilities. Yet they are outperforming everyone. How? They watched the screens in silence. Jaewon sat by the fire using his blade to carve a piece of wood into a new tool. Nari was teaching a Vilnari basic first aid. Yun was demonstrating trap-making to a curious candidate from a species they had never seen before. Minji was drawing a map in the dirt, sharing terrain information freely. They succeed because they share knowledge, Torvis said finally. Most species hoard their advantages. They see everything as competition. But humans understand that teaching others does not diminish their own skills. In fact, it strengthens their position. They are making themselves indispensable, Velkris realized. Other candidates now see the humans as valuable allies rather than threats. Exactly. And that, administrator, is a lesson that takes most species centuries to learn. The humans are teaching it in 3 days. Back in the jungle, Jaewon finished his watch and woke Nari for her shift. As he lay down to sleep, he thought about the exam. They were not just surviving anymore. They were thriving. And more importantly, they were changing the rules of the game without breaking a single regulation. His grandfather's words came back to him. Humans survive by adapting, but they excel by helping others adapt too. He smiled and closed his eyes. 4 more days to go.